Okay, now it's 8 p.m. So I just start from my part and then pass the control to you. Is that okay, Mr. All right.
可以。
OK， 大家晚上好，感谢大家收看我们今天晚上和顾比先生的线上网课啊。首先呢，还是大家对顾比先生有一个简单的了解啊，他呢已经是我们全球10大交易员啊，或者说 Top 10的这个10大分析师之一。那么也非常荣幸我们 gomarketssyd 一直跟他合作。那在所有我们讲的内容开始的最前面呢，肯定还是做一个免责声明啊，就是说 gomarketssyd 呢没有考虑到大家的这个个人财务情况啊，所以说我们只是针对目前的市场基本情况以及呢包括顾比先生对市场的一些判断和技术指标的讲解。那么这些行为呢，它是属于一些客观的投资分析啊，所以说大家如果是想要自己去根据个人情况去投资啊，那么这些呢我们是不会有任何的个人建议的啊，都是针对市场上的一些客观行为。那么 gomarketssyd 呢也是成立非常久啊，最早呢其实是在1998年成立的，那么04年拿到牌照之后呢，开始从事一些金融和相应的衍生品业务，15年呢成立了中文部，老牌的券商啊，那么在目前当下澳洲华人金融公司啊频频出现问题的这种背景下，老牌券商呢它的这个吸引力啊还有安全性就显得非常高了啊，因为大家也知道刚刚也出现了一些金融领域的一些丑闻啊，或者说是一些那个风险，但是对 gomarketssyd 来讲的话，我们的这个不管是从财报上看，还是说从历史的永久度啊，以及呢我们背后的这些财团的实力，还有大家资金的安全，这些呢都是可以在澳洲查得到的啊，都是放在托管账户里面。我们的这个产品呢也非常丰富啊，线上的这些内容呢大家都可以在 YouTube 上面去查到，包括也赞助了很多的体育赛事啊，包括这个全球形象大使是张帅啊，所以呢整体上来讲的话，我们给中文华人这个朋友投资者提供了丰富的信息参考，包括从交易行情上面，还有一些其他的事情上面，都会给到大家一些相应的帮助。那么我们今天呢很荣幸还是跟顾比先生合作啊，所以说接下来我把更多的时间呢就交给顾比先生，由顾比先生去讲解我们内容，然后我来做翻译。Mr. Gabi, I just pass the presenter to you. Yeah.
Okay, let's just confirm that you can hear me and see my full screen.
Yeah, very clear.
Excellent. 女士们、先生们，你们好。Tonight, I've been asked to talk about the impact of the Israel-Palestine conflict on Australian investors. And this is really about the impact of major geopolitical events on Australian investors.
今年呢，我受邀给大家去讲解一下以色列和巴勒斯坦目前的冲突对澳大利亚投资者的问题。那么也因此展开就是局域或者说地域性的这种局部冲突呢，对澳大利亚投资者有哪些影响？
I just got to, there we go. So these are the questions I've been asked to consider. First, is there a potential peaceful resolution to the Israeli-Palestine conflict? Now that's a political question, and I'm not too sure that I'm really qualified to answer that particular question.
接下来呢，就是我们要讨论一系列的问题。那么第一个问题呢，就是屏幕上面的就是说巴以冲突呢，它会迎来一个潜在的比较和平的解决方案呢？顾比先生说他也不是政客啊，这个问题呢，他没有办法给到具体的答案。
Then more importantly, we're going to look at when we're faced with sudden regional conflicts, how does the Guppy multiple moving average respond? Does it give us an early warning? Is it too slow to react? Or can we use it to effectively understand what's happening? We'll try to answer that question.
那么对于这种宗教信仰或者说相应的一些地缘问题的冲突呢，那么在市场上它是就突发性，它是否是有前因后果，有没有什么可预测性呢？那么对市场呢，它的这个市场上对它的反应到底是提前的，还是说是滞后的？
Now, these questions were proposed about 2 weeks ago. So we're looking at if the conflict intensifies, what else besides gold and oil might be affected in the market? In other words, can we find other opportunities that come out of these types of events?
那么这个问题呢，其实已经发生一段时间了，大概就是包括我在整理这些问题的时候，就是在2周之前的时间。那么其实我们还是要看巴以冲突呢，它的这些金融上的影响，包括黄金啊、石油啊，那么以及这一类事件对什么金融产品可能会产生哪些影响。
So I'm going to try and give you some ideas around how we survive in these types of environments. So let's start off at the beginning. Is there a potential peaceful resolution to the Israel-Palestine conflict?
我接下来呢，主题就告诉大家怎么样在这样的市场环境背景下生存下来。那么我们就到第一个问题，就是巴以冲突有没有可能迎来一个和平解决的方案？
And without taking any side or making any comment about the conflict, the simple answer is no.
我们没有任何政治偏见或者说不站队的情况下，客观的来讲，答案就是不太可能。
This is a mutually destructive conflict that's been going on since 1947, at the end of the Second World War, or even back before then to what's called the Balfour Declaration. It's unlikely to be resolved anytime soon.
为什么说不可能呢？就是因为这个冲突呢，它持续的时间实在太久了，在1947年就已经出现非常明显的冲突了，在2战期间，那么再往前的话，再倒推几十年都是有大大小小的冲突，所以说在这么长时间的一个矛盾的下面呢是没有办法很容易解决的。
Now, each of you will have your own views as to who is right and who is wrong and who should win and who should lose. We're not here to discuss those this evening. What we are looking at is the potential impacts of these types of events.
这个呢，就像我们回到家，或者说在什么场景下，到底是指责说，谁对谁错呀？哪个是好的，哪个是坏的？其实这个是没有意义的。我们今天晚上也不会讨论这些，还是会把重心呢放在这种环境背景下，会对市场造成哪些影响。
Which means we can move very quickly on to the second question, which is, when we're faced with a sudden regional conflict like this, how did the Guppy multiple moving average respond? Did it give us any advantage in this environment?
我们就很快进入到最核心的问题，就是说，当面对地缘政治冲突的突发事件的时候呢，那么固比均线到底能不能给我们一些帮助？到底有哪些优势呢？
Now, the normal part of the expected answer to this question is that the indicator gave us an early warning.
最好的这个我们说要得到的一个实现，就是所有的指标呢要提前做出预测和反应，这是最好的。
That it developed a crossover or a compression, something that gave us as investors an edge or an advantage over people who weren't using this indicator.
不管是从这种交叉出现这种技术性的交叉呀，或者说是排列啊这些技术上的一些数据或者显示出来的时候呢，它能够明确的告诉我们这件事情要发生了，就是还是要有前瞻性的这种指标。
And in many ways it did, but not quite in the way that most people would expect.
在通常上来讲的话，指标是能够实现的，但是呢，很多人是意识不到的。
Let me talk about the dog that didn't bark.
大家就讨论一下这个不叫的狗。
It's a famous story, a famous Sherlock Holmes detective story.
这是一个非常出名的一个故事。
Someone steals a valuable racehorse, but the guard dogs didn't bark.
Sorry.
Someone stole a famous and valuable racehorse, and the guard dogs didn't bark.
OK， 有人就是去偷了一个非常这个有价值的一些东西啊，就是可能是首饰什么的，但是呢，这个看门狗呢，它并没有叫。
So Sherlock Holmes, the famous detective, realizes that means that the dogs must have known the thief.
那其实警察或者说是那个主人就知道了这个狗呢肯定是认识那个进来偷东西的人。
And in Western literature, that's a very famous story, the dog that didn't bark.
这就是狗它不叫的这个非常著名的一个故事。
And that's exactly what's happened here.
这跟现在正在发生的是一样的。
So what we expected to happen didn't happen.
我们预期要发生那些事情，其实是并没有发生的。
Let me explain.
再给大家解释一下。
Guppy multiple moving average. It's really about, in many ways, thinking fast and thinking slow.
固比均线在某种意义上来讲，它其实就反映出了两类，一类呢就是想得很快，另外一类呢就是另外一些线呢，它其实提示的就是说思考的比较慢的人。
Now I know that most of you already know the multiple moving average, but there are possibly one or two of you who don't, so I will go over it very quickly.
大家基本上都熟悉了这个均线的这些东西，所以说可能只有一两个人不太清楚，所以这部分呢我就很快的给大家过一下。
The GMMA has two groups of moving averages, short term and long term.
GMMA 呢，这固比均线呢，它是由两部分组成的，短期的均线和长期的均线。
The short term, we can say, is fast thinking. It's the way the traders behave.
蓝色的短期均线呢，它是非常快速的反映的这个市场，它是交易员的这种线条的思想速度反应。
The long-term group, 红色, shows us the way that investors are thinking, and they think and act more slowly than traders.
它红色地方呢显示的就是投资者，而不是交易员，就是投资者他的思考呢或者行动呢会比较慢一些。
So the idea is that the traders would act very quickly in response to the attack by Hamas.
问题就是在蓝色的呢，就是交易员他们的反应是非常迅速的，所以说呢，在以色列被这个哈马斯袭击之后呢，市场的反应是非常快速的。
And the idea is that fast reaction, that compression that took place would be a good guide for us as traders or investors to take an early position, either on the long side or the short side.
所以呢，当这个蓝色的线快速上涨的时候，就证明出现了一些事情。那么这些事情发生呢，不管是对于交易员短线来讲，还是对于长期的投资者来讲，都是一个非常有价值参考的信号。
Because when the groups of moving averages compress, both of them, the short-term and the long-term groups, it tells us there is a major change in the trend developing.
当不管是上穿还是下穿，就是只要是短期和长期的线有穿插之后呢，它都告诉了我们，就是说最近的这个情况发生了变化，需要引起注意。
And that's what we expect to happen in the market after the attack by Hamas. We expect the dog to bark.
我们就是相当于我们预期了这哈马斯袭击了一系列，以及呢我们通过这个事件就其实能够预期，狗其实呢是没有叫的。
But the dog didn't bark.
但狗其实是就是它确实是没有叫的。
The market did not react strongly to the attack by Hamas.
市场的反应呢，对哈马斯袭击的这个反应呢，也不是很强烈。
Here's the S&P index.
这个是标普500。
So this first arrow here is when Russia attacked Ukraine.
这第一个左边的箭头呢，就是俄罗斯跟乌克兰发生战争的时候。
Actually, I think that is in the wrong position for some reason. I'm not too sure why. So when Russia attacked Ukraine, we saw a major move develop in the market.
我们看到就是俄乌战争刚开始的时候呢，市场上的这个反应呢，其实是比较奇怪的。
I'm sorry that this arrow should in fact be here. For some reason, it seems to have moved.
哦，这个左边箭头呢，其实是应该在下面的这个位置，它这个箭头放的有点偏左了。
So we saw a major market reaction.
所以就是这主要的市场的反应呢，是从这个箭头这里开始，就是鼠标这里开始的。
Not sure in which direction. 想下。
但是这个方向是错误的。
We expected that the market would fall, but instead the market went up.
我们预期呢，就是市场要下跌了嘛，因为战争，所以但是市场是往上走的。
So the dog barked, but not in quite the way that we expected.
所以呢，就是狗叫和不叫这个事情呢，它跟我们的预期呢，我们预期狗是要叫的嘛，因为偷东西了，但实际上是反着的。
But when Hamas attacked, the market did nothing.
当那个哈马斯袭击的时候呢，标普500呢就没有动。
This is the daily GMMA in this extract here on the right-hand side.
但是呢，我们看给它放大这个之后的一些日线来讲的话，就是后右下角这个图的走势了。
The arrow shows the day the market opened after the Hamas attack on the weekend.
这个显示呢，就是在哈马斯袭击以色列之后的那个开盘的时候的那个走势，这个 K 线。
So what we see is a continuation of the existing trend development. We don't see anything new.
我们看到就是它延续了之前的走势，并没有产生新的走势。
So in the Hamas attack, the market absorbed it. It wasn't worried about it.
所以呢，市场对于哈马斯的这次袭击呢是忽略它了，就是觉得不重要。
But in the Russian attack, the market did react strongly, but it went up, not down.
但是呢，在俄乌冲突的时候呢，市场反而是向上走的，并没有向下。
Let's see how that impacted on oil, because surely oil is more sensitive to what's happening in the Middle East.
我们接下来看一下石油的价格走势，因为石油的价格波动呢是更加敏感的，因为战事都是发生在中东地区。
Did the dog bark?
我们再看狗叫到底是狗叫了还是没有叫。
So here is the Russian attack on the left-hand side.
我们看左边这个呢，就是俄乌战争的那个冲突，在左边这个是这个线头。
And we can see that oil jumped very rapidly.
所以我们看到石油跳得非常高，非常快。
And so did the price of petrol at the petrol pump.
那就是大家看那个加油的那个价格也会大幅飙升。
Yeah, 加油。But then it fell. And for the last several months, oil has been trading at the same level that it was trading in 2019.
我们接下来看石油价格就下跌了，并且呢下跌了很久，有一段时间呢它持续的价格是在2019年的那个价格区间在波动。
But they keep on telling us oil is what's driving inflation.
告诉我们这个石油价格呢，它其实是引导了通胀水平。
So when Russia invaded the Ukraine, the dog barked as we expected it to.
当俄罗斯入侵乌克兰的时候呢，狗叫了，然后呢，我们的市场也是有同样的反应。
But when Hamas attacked, the dog did not bark.
但是当哈马斯袭击的时候呢，这个狗并没有叫。
In fact, the price of oil now is lower than it was when Russia first attacked the Ukraine.
甚至石油价格呢，当下的价格还比当年俄乌冲突刚开始的时候价格还要低。
And although the media talked about the price of oil was rocketing upwards after the Hamas attack, in fact, it did not.
那么在之前的话，石油价格还是在稳定上涨的，但是呢，其实在哈马斯袭击之后呢，它并没有延续这个趋势。
That's the weekly chart.
这是周线。
If we look at the daily chart, here is the day that the market opened after the Hamas attack. The price of oil actually fell.
我们看到这个箭头显示的这个 K 线呢，就是在哈马斯袭击之后的周一开盘价。我们看开盘之后开始石油价格快速下跌。
It fell for the next 3 days. 3天。
它下跌了3天。
Then it rose slowly, but not very much.
然后上涨慢慢的，但涨得不多。
So the question is, did the GMMA help us to understand that the price of oil was most likely to continue falling after the Hamas attack?
所以呢，这个固比均线到底有没有告诉我们，在这个哈马斯袭击发生之后，石油价格呢其实是要延续之前的趋势继续下跌的？
And the answer is yes.
答案是对的。
Because we see that the long-term group of moving averages was beginning to compress before the attack.
我们看到这个短期和长期的这个线啊，在袭击发生之前啊，它就已经出现了下跌下穿。
It was turning down. It was no longer, investors were no longer supporting or driving prices higher.
所以呢，长线呢，就是这个红色长线投资者来讲，他们已经不再支持石油价格继续上涨了。
Yes, there was a short-term rally, but looking at the GMMA relationships, we know that that was most likely to be a short-term rally before the long-term downtrend continued.
我们看这个就知道，就是说短期的投资者呢，就是说蓝色这个线它是对市场有快速反应的，但是呢，它是中长期的影响呢是比较大的，就是说它是一直在掉头往下的。
So when Russia invaded, it accelerated the trend up because there's already an uptrend.
那么在俄乌战争冲突的开始的时候呢，它其实是一个向上的一个趋势，所以说呢，它会加速它上涨。
When Hamas attacked, it accelerated the downtrend.
那哈马斯袭击发生的时候呢，它其实是在一个下降通道里面的。
So the dog did bark.
所以狗没有叫。
It drove reactions in the market that were relatively strong.
就是趋势的对市场的影响还是非常大的。
Okay, well, surely gold should be reacting. This is an unstable situation, so people always turn to gold. 是不是？
黄金是不是也会受到影响呢？因为这段时间呢，它是不稳定的时期嘛，所以说对于黄金这种产品肯定是也有影响的。
True. Yes, there was a rise in the price of gold.
答案是的，这个黄金价格呢，确实是受到了影响。
And back here, in the Russian invasion, there was also a rise in the price of gold. So the dog did bark as we expected.
那么回到最左边这个箭头这里，是俄乌冲突刚开始的时候。黄金的价格是上涨了，所以说相当于是狗呢，看完狗是叫了。
And here's a daily chart of gold on the right-hand side.
在右边呢，我们看到它是这个黄金的日线图的价格走势。
So here we see a very rapid compression in the short-term averages, followed by a rapid compression in the long-term averages. So the GMMA told us clearly that this was going to move and move rapidly.
我们看到短期均线呢上穿了长期均线，短期投机者或者说交易员们告诉我们，这个市场呢要发生变化了，并且呢 整个长线投资者也是在做同样的行为，已经扭转了。这个图非常清晰的可以看到。
So if we look at Euro Stoxx 50, which is basically tracking the European market, we can see similar sorts of behaviors.
我们看欧洲的这个指数啊，是50指数，代表了欧洲股票也是有一样的这个行为发生。
The Russian attack pushed the market down.
俄罗斯袭击呢，它导致了整个欧洲的股票市场下跌。
The Hamas attack continued the downtrend pressure that was already in place.
哈马斯呢，它袭击也是继续了之前的这个走势的下跌，它是一个继续性的行为。
But this is no surprise because the Euro Stoxx 50 was already in a well-established downtrend. Look at this GMMA on the daily chart. Wide separation, strong investor selling.
所以我们看到右下角这个图呢，就是对哈马斯袭击之后呢，欧洲股市继续下跌，并不感到意外，是因为呢，它已经连续的非常坚定的在下降的通道里面多次碰到上方的这个投资者红色的线，在大量抛售。
We'll move on quickly to have a look at the Australian market and its reactions.
我们再回过头来看澳大利亚股票市场的反应。
The Russian attack, the market moved up on the weekly chart for several weeks.
俄乌冲突刚开始的时候呢，澳洲的股票指数是上涨了几个星期。
And then it fell, but that wasn't in response to what was happening in the Ukraine.
然后呢就下跌了，但它并没有反映出来俄乌战争冲突的任何因素。
With the Hamas attack, on a daily chart, we saw a rally taking place, not what we would expect.
我们其实看右下角，当哈马斯袭击发生的时候呢，澳洲的股市也上涨了，它并不是没有像我们预期行为的那样去下跌。
But we knew, looking at the Guppy multiple moving average, that rally was likely to develop into a retreat.
但是我们看股比均线呢，我们知道它涨到那个阻力的地方，就红色的地方，然后呢又会出现大概率向下回落的这种信号。
In other words, the downtrend that we see in the weekly chart was not likely to change because of the Hamas attack. It was likely to continue.
我们看到的就是周线级别上的这个下跌呢，它并不容易改变，所以说哈马斯袭击发生呢，它对于市场并没有发生变化，而是延续了之前的趋势。
So what these charts are telling us is that to a very large degree, the Israeli-Palestine conflict is, to use the market term, baked into the cake.
我们其实这个冲突呢，巴以冲突呢，对我们到底告诉了什么？这些图表里面，它其实寓意呢，就是说这个冲突呢，就像这个切蛋糕一样。
So by being baked into the cake, it means that the market has already considered what might happen and included that already in market activity.
那最简单的一件事情呢，就是这个市场呢，它已经充分的反映出来了大家的预期，并且呢，已经把预期反映到了价格里面。
So what we saw, if we go back to the idea of the dog and the thief, what we saw is that the market quickly adapted to this new situation.
我们回过头看那个狗叫和不叫和小偷的故事，再回到这个市场当时这个发生的这个情况来看，其实呢都是一样的道理。
It sort of went woof, oh, this is normal, and went back to sleep.
就是大家就像这个突然惊讶的哦，这个是很难发生的吗？或者很意外吗？然后呢，发现哦，这个东西是偶尔就经常会发生的，然后大家又回去睡觉了。
And the GMMA indicator told us that this was the most likely reaction.
固比均线呢告诉我们，就是最可能发生的一个行为是什么？就是告诉我们这个。
We didn't see any rapid compression in the long-term group of moving averages.
Sorry, repetition?
We didn't see any rapid compression in the long-term group of moving averages.
我们并没有看到那个长线投资者呢对这个事件做出非常剧烈的改变。
So investors said, "Oh, that's interesting, but not very important." So they continued the same way that they had before the attack took place.
对于长期投资者来讲，对他们来说呢，这个袭击呢是一个可以就是说被认为是偶尔会发生的一件事情，并没有改变他们的长期投资决策。所以说，当价格到那个位置，他们又会做出之前一样的行为。
But traders were like small dogs, like puppies.
交易员或者投机者像 puppy， 像就是小狗。
They got all excited, woof woof, and there was a short-term rally, but the old dog said, "Don't worry, calm down." So the old trend continued.
小狗们就会很惊奇的去看到新发生的这些事情，并且呢做出快速的反应。但是呢，那些长线投资者就像老狗们一样，他们的行为比较缓慢就是抬起头说哦，这个事情发生了，好，那就继续了。所以说他们的趋势呢依旧会延续。
So the GMMA told us that the GMMA told us that there was unlikely to be major trend changes in the market.
所以呢，固比均线告诉我们呢，这些地缘性事件呢，它没有办法变成一个改变市场的主要因素。
So we didn't have to rush out and sell everything. We could relax.
我们就是也不需要去做任何的事情就是看这些事情发生，就是大家放松就好。
And that's an advantage because it meant that we could look at the price behavior and know that this was a short-term reaction.
所以固比均线的优势就在这里，就是大家看了固比均线的走势之后呢，就会意识到这是一个短期的行为，那么大家就会对自己的投资有一个中长线的合理的判断了。
But of course, this conflict should have some impact on other areas besides gold and oil. What else might be affected?
那么除了这个黄金、石油，还有这些指数还有没有什么其他的这个产品会受到巴以冲突的影响呢？
Now, I think when we were looking at the index charts and the oil chart and the gold chart, there's one thing that came out, a contradiction that we found.
我们看黄金也好，石油也好，这些图表们都会反映出来同一个问题。
And that contradiction is between what we expected to happen, oil should go up really quickly, and what actually happened.
他们反映的这个核心呢，都是市场是我们预期怎么样，那么最后它是否验证了我们的预期。
We'll look at that in a minute.
我们很快的去过一遍这个。
But the question, as the war continues, let's take it away from Israel and Palestine, as the conflict continues, what else might be affected?
问题就是呢，如果巴以冲突它会一直延续下去那么还有什么其他的产品会被有影响的？
And I'm going to pause here for a minute and take a bit of a detour.
Sorry, a detour?
A detour. A sidetrack.
A sidetrack.
Right.
Yeah. So the whole sentence again, sorry.
Okay, I'm going to pause and take a sidetrack.
就是还会继续可能袭击。
I trade the financial markets.
我们去追踪这个金融市场。
And my objective is to make a profit from each of those trades.
我们的目的呢，就是追踪这些事件，然后呢，能够使得获利。
And I will always talk about what's important is the price activity.
我们最关心的呢，就是价格的行为。
But I'm always looking at the price chart.
那我们也关注这个图表，就价格的图表、K 线图这些。
And I say I don't care which company it is. I don't need to know that. I just need to know what the price chart is telling me.
其实对我来讲，不需要看任何的这个图表显示的是哪家公司或者什么产品。对我来讲，只要告诉我这个图表本身就可以了。
This is true.
这是正确的。
But not always true.
但有时候也不正确。
So this question leads into a wider question.
这个问题会放大到一个更大的问题里面。
What else will be affected?
其他的什么东西会被影响？
There are all sorts of industries that are involved in supporting this type of military conflict.
很多行业都会受到影响，包括给他们支持的这些军事相关、军工领域的一些板块。
I just need you to understand that I will not invest or trade in these industries.
我只是想告诉大家，我个人是不会投任何钱到这一类的行业里面去。
So I avoid companies that are involved in arms manufacturing.
我拒绝投资钱到这个武器制造商手里。
So that's my personal choice. It's my ethical approach to the market.
Yeah. 这是我个人的选择，也是我个人对待这个市场的道德准则。
But despite that, the analysis tools remain exactly the same. But when I make the final choice, if the best opportunity is an arms manufacturer, then I will not trade it.
但是我们说归说，但是就是说，一旦发生这样的情况呢，武器制造商或者军工板块呢，往往都是收益最快体现出来的。
I just want you to understand.
然后只是希望大家能够理解。
So when we look at this situation, we need to follow our beliefs about what is going to happen, but we don't want to follow them blindly.
Sorry, what's it blindly?
Okay, we need to follow our beliefs. In other words, if we believe that the conflict will drive up the price of aircraft manufacturers and weapons manufacturers, then they're the stocks that we will look at.
我们预期的话，基本上是市场上呢会符合大多数人的预期。比方说，我们认为这个冲突会导致武器制造商的股票上涨，那它其实呢最终都是会反映到价格里面去的。
But we cannot let our belief interfere with what we see on the price chart.
但是呢，我们不能把这种认知呢放到图表走势里面，因为图表不是验证我们，而是应该是反过来。
So we expected, and the media tells us that the oil price was going to rise rapidly.
就像我们说，这个如果我们觉得这个石油价格要涨了，然后图表上就显出来快速上涨。
It did not.
其实不是这样的。
And one look at the price chart told you that that belief was incorrect.
图表呢会告诉你哪些事情是正确，哪些事情是不正确的。
So this is a famous painting from Europe.
这是欧洲一个非常著名的画。
And it shows the blind man leading the other blind people.
就显示了一个看不见的人呢去 就是领了一群看不见的人。
And he's laughing as he falls into the ditch because he knows that all the rest of them are also going to follow him and fall into the ditch.
他这个人呢挖了一个坑，然后呢就是说这个第一个人带着他们进了坑，然后还在笑，因为他知道呢就是说其实后面的人也会跟他一样掉进这个坑里。
So keep your belief about what you think is going to happen in the market, but don't follow them blindly.
坚定你对市场判断的信念，但是呢，不要盲目的去跟随这些市场上的意见。
So what do we want from the market? When we trade the market, what are we looking for?
所以我们想从市场上得到什么呢？当我们在市场里交易，我们是看什么呢？
And it doesn't matter if there is a conflict in Israel and Palestine, or if it's just a normal market condition.
还是我刚刚讲到的，这个不管是巴以冲突还是其他的市场上变化的条件，这些都不重要。
We are always looking for price to increase.
我们只是看价格的变化是不是上涨。
And once it's increased enough, or it begins to start to decrease, we want to take money out of the market.
那么价格我们需要知道价格呢是上涨足够的位置，还是说它要开始下跌？我们需要做的就是从市场上获利。
The question is, how do we find what stocks are going to increase in price?
我们需要知道就是说什么样的这个就是刚刚说那个狗的故事会显现出来价格是上涨的。
And the answer is a little surprising.
答案会比较的让人惊奇。
We did quite a bit of research over the last several weeks, and yes, we were looking for the price impact following the Hamas attack and earlier the attack in Ukraine.
我们在过去的几周做了大量的研究，研究结果也是非常的使人震惊。基本上就是在发生战争之前，市场就已经对战争进行了价格的折现的这种变现的预测。
And we reached some beliefs about how the market would behave.
我们还是就是有一些就是信念吧，就市场的这些行为，关于它的一些信念。
Inflation is high.
这些信念就是比方说通胀很高。
People don't have spare money for the market.
人们没有什么钱去投到这个市场里。
So we would expect, we believed, that the lower end of the market would not be very successful.
就是告诉我们呢，我们的想法或者说我们的预期呢，就是预测市场的底部呢，在当下是不太可取的。
What we would call the speculative end of the market.
我们就是这个投机者在这个市场里的行为。
We would think that most of the money would start to flow to the other end of the market. Let's call them the blue chips.
所以在这种情况下呢，资金它会发生流动，大部分的钱呢会流到大型的企业、头部龙头企业里面去。
So our belief was that if we looked at the middle of the market, that's probably middle price in the market, that's probably where we would get the most price increase.
Sorry, you mean the middle price means from the
middle
market?
Price, not the speculative end of the market, not the blue chip end of the market, but in the middle.
OK， 他说
Stocks
就
for
是在
$20 to $30.
在这个中间价格的这些产品，它的这个走势也会比较的独特。
We needed to be hunting, looking for opportunities in the right area.
所以因为钱都去了中大型的这些市场里面去，所以我们就要像猎人一样有耐心的去找到这些市场里面的机会。
And we wanted a simple test.
我们做一个简单的测试。
And that was stocks that had increased in value by 10% over 1 week.
我们去找那个股票市值在一周里面增加10%的。
Because these were stocks that were just beginning to develop momentum, and they were probably going to continue.
这些股票呢，往往是刚刚启动，并且很大程度上会继续大幅度上涨。
So where are these going to be located?
所以这些产品从哪里去找呢？
So we did a simple search of the market to create a stock pool.
所以我们找了做了一些研究，在这市场里面做了一个组合。
And what we found was that in the middle of the market, say $20 to $30, the percentage increase over a week was very, very small.
我们找到了中型的这个产品，价格在20到30左右这个价格区间的这些产品，我发现它在一周里面涨幅的比较小。
This is a search, you can't use it because it's already two and a half weeks out of date. This was a search for stocks trading between $20 and $30. The best gave 4.6% return for the week. Useless.
这个表呢，大家不要用啊，因为这个是2周之前做的数据。那么在这一周呢，就是说涨得最好的一个，也只是涨了4.6%，没有用。
But there were 595 stocks that traded between 10 cents and 50 cents.
但是呢，我们在1毛到5毛钱的这些股票里面呢，是找到了大量的满足条件。就是继续搜索这些市场。
And about 30 of them traded more than 10% over the week.
在一周时间里面呢，有10个，就是有10%的这个1毛到5毛的股票呢，是涨超过10%一周。
We expanded this from 10 cents to $1.
我们再扩大从1毛钱到1块钱。
And we found consistently that this is where most of the stocks were that added 10% during the week.
我们扩大了范围之后呢，依旧是这些股票呢，它的这个涨幅呢，在一周时间里超过了10%。
This we find is the best stock pool in the current market conditions. This is where the movement is taking place.
所以我们在当下的市场环境里面找到最好的这些股票的范围池子，就是集中在这些股票的这个里面。
It's no good looking at stocks trading between $20 and $30. The chart and the indicators may look excellent, but the return is only 2 or 3%.
但是因为刚刚说那些股票波动性非常好，但是呢，20到30块钱的这些股票呢，虽然它的图表啊什么各方面看起来很健康很不错，但是它的回报率比较低。
So we had a belief about where we thought the main price activity would be in the market, but that belief was wrong.
我们就通过刚刚的那个测试就知道了，我们自己认为的市场情况其实是一个错误的方向。
And if we followed that belief, we would all fall into a hole.
我们如果是坚定我们自己错误的信念，像刚刚20到30股票的块钱股票的投资，我们就会去一个错误的方向里。
So we tested the belief in the market. We found that the stocks trading between 10 cents and $1 gave us the best probability of finding strongly performing stocks.
所以根据我们做出来的这个筛选呢，那么真正市场在当下情况里面能给我们带来超额回报、非常漂亮的回报率的呢，是集中在1毛钱到1块钱的股票区间里。
Now, notice. Look at this, 60%, 47, 37, 36, 30%, 18%, 13%, 10%. not a single one of these stocks is related to anything that is happening in the Ukraine or the Palestine-Israel conflict.
那大家看一下这些上涨了40%、47、37的这些股票，在一周时间里，这些股票呢没有一个是跟巴勒斯坦巴以冲突有关系的。
There are no weapons manufacturers.
没有武器制造商。
There are no oil companies.
没有石油公司。
There's maybe some that are exploring for gold, but that's accidental, as it were.
这有一些是挖金矿的公司，但是并不是很多。
So my point is that although we think that the Palestine-Israel conflict should deliver opportunities in some sectors, the reality is that there is a very low correlation between where the opportunity is and what's happening on a geopolitical level.
所以呢，我们的大脑呢，或者说我们通常意义上会反映的，就是巴以冲突呢会对相应的一些行业或者股票造成影响，但事实上，告诉我们呢，结果就是产生的影响很小，微不足道。
We are not trying to predict the world. We are trying to find those stocks that are telling us there's a good chance the price will increase.
我们并不是为了预测这个世界要发生什么，而是我们在这个市场里面的价格图表上找到我们的资金能够增值的产品。
Don't lose track of what you are trying to achieve.
不要不去追寻，就是不去验证你所信的那些想法。
Of course, we have to filter those stocks to find the best of those trading opportunities.
所以呢，我们要去寻找就是把所有的这个设置都设置好，寻找到最能够验证我们赚钱的这个思维和逻辑的产品。
Many of you have seen this before, where we start off with stocks that have that 5 to 10% price increase. Now we're using 10% or better.
大部分的人可能之前看过这个图啊，这个在第一个这个漏斗呢，我们显示的是5%到10%的这个上涨的价格，怎么去筛选啊？现在是要最好是10%以上。
对不起 We apply GMMA and trend line and countback line analysis.
我们用到的技术指标呢是固比均线，然后趋势线，还有 CBL 以及呢这个 ATR 两个指标。
But now we use another filter method called free float analysis.
那今天给大家多介绍一个筛选的这个指标，叫做自由流通量。
Now, before we go any further, someone is going to ask or want to ask, does this work?
在我们进行下一步之前，肯定有人问啊，这个到底有没有效？
These are slight changes to the methods that we've used in the past.
对过去来讲，我们这里是有一些小的改变。
Now, as you know, we write a weekly newsletter where we demonstrate different types of trading methods.
正如大家所了解的，我们是有那个每周的这个新闻，然后呢，还有一些这个策略报告。
So we show you what works and what does not work.
我们可以给大家展示哪些是可以属于工作的，是好用的，哪些是不好用的。
And we run what we call a case study portfolio.
我们也会运行一个案例学习的投资组合。
So our banked returns on capital since July the 1st this year is 71%.
我们这个案例呢，就是告诉大家用这个资金回报曲线啊，在2023年的7月份到2024年6月份1年的时间里面的回报率是71%。
That's a good protection against inflation.
它是抗通胀非常好的一个表现。
And it's much, much better than the bank.
当然也比银行存款要好得多。
So here's two examples of recent trade examples in the newsletter that use the methods that we're talking about this evening.
我们就是这2个案例呢，就是我们给大家参考了最近获得回报比较高的2个产品，也是我们今天晚上主要给大家讲的。
This was joining a trend at a point of trend weakness, an 81% return.
这个呢是在 ATR 出现买入信号的时候进场，那么最终获得了81%的回报。
This was trading a breakout that gave us a 72% return.
这个呢是 ATR 突破这个压力线，然后呢上涨的一个走势是获得了72%的回报。
So the methods that we're using are effective in the current market environment.
所以呢，我们这个策略呢其实是有效的，在当下的一个市场环境里。
But what's this free float?
什么是自由流通量呢？
What we see in the market on our trading screens is only a small number of the total number of shares available.
当我们在交易股票产品的时候呢，我们会看到那个交易软件上面显示的股票的买卖的数量呢，只是冰山一角。
So you may have a stock, and we'll just use these as examples, where there are 15 million shares on issue.
我们举例子，一个股票呢，假设是有1500万股的这个股票数量。
But in this example, on the left, 12 million shares are locked up.
在这个案例中呢，1200万股呢是被锁住的，不能自由流通。
They can't be traded. They're owned by superannuation funds. They're owned by long-term investors. They're owned by fund managers.
这些股呢是不会在市场上自由流通的，因为他们被这些养老金啊，或者说大型机构啊持有，他们是长线持有者。
So most of the time, these 12 million shares are not available to buy or sell on the market.
大多数时间来讲的话，这1200万股呢是没有办法在二级市场上买卖的。
There's only 3 million shares that are freely available for trading, and that's what is the shares that are available for trading are called the free float.
右边的300万股呢，就是能够自由在二级市场上流通的，这个呢就是我称之为自由流通量。
But in this stock, 3 million shares are locked up, and 12 million shares are available for trading.
但是右边这个股票呢，反过来了，它只有300万股呢是被锁住不能交易的，右面的1200万股呢是可以在二级市场上自由流通的。
So the free float here is larger than the free float for this stock, even though both stocks have 15 million shares in total.
两个股票呢，它都是有1500万的印刷的这个股票的总额度，但是呢，右边呢很明显流通的股票呢远远大于左边这个。
Now what happens when all of the shares available for the free float have been traded? In other words, the share register has completely changed.
我们要看的就是这些流通的股票里面到底是怎样发生流动性的。另外呢，哪一些被认购的股票又到了谁的手里？
When we look at a chart, we can calculate the number of shares that have been traded in each segment of the trend.
我们看图表和这个交易的情况上，就能够去计算出来。大概有哪一些的这个平均价格，或者说是持有成本这些数据。
Consider this simple example.
给大家一个例子。
We look at the chart and we calculate the number of shares that changed hands, 200,000.
我们看这个假设有20万股的这个数量，然后在市场上。
And we look at the next downtrend, and it's about 200,000. It's the same.
然后呢，我们看右边，它又是20万股，但这是个下降的这个抛掉的这个股票数量。
and we go back in history and look at the share trading, and we find that every time there is about 200,000 shares traded, the trend changes.
当我们回到它的历史数据上来看，这个股票呢，每次出现20万股以上的成交量的时候呢，它的趋势就会发生改变。
So we decide that we're going to buy this stock because we have some entry signals here.
如果我们要去买这个股票的时候，这个信号呢，就是在右边这个绿色的这个地方。
And we know that 50,000 shares have been traded out of the normal 200,000 shares traded in the trend.
就是当我们发现这个已经有5万股的股票数量在被买卖掉之后呢，我们延续之前的这个趋势，它有可能会出现20万股，引发信号。
So there's 150,000 shares to be traded before the trend changes.
所以在信号发生之前呢，还有15万股将要被成交。
So that makes a mid-trend entry safe.
所以这个进场时机呢，就是在中间进场的价格比较安全。
If we were trading in the breakout and only 10,000 shares had been traded, so there were 190,000 shares left, then that's also a safer entry.
Also a safe entry.
对。
如果我们在左边啊，就是说进场的时候，它只有1万股成交，但是呢还有19万股并没有成交，那这个时候它也是一个安全的进场价格。
That's the theory.
这是理论上。
This is what it looks like in practice.
这就是我们实战上的。
The difference between this trend move, 303 million shares traded.
这个呢，就是在左边这个条形框框里面，它的这个交易的股票数量呢，大概是3亿股。
And in this downtrend, 307 million shares traded.
在这个下跌的这个区间呢，它的平均交易的这个股票数量大概也是3亿多股。
And in this uptrend, 308,000 shares traded.
然后这个向上涨的区间，它大概也是3亿多股。
So if we are looking to buy here and go short, then we know that once we reach around 306 million shares, the average, that there is an increased probability that this downtrend will change to an uptrend.
我们如果是在右边这个刚开始出现下跌的地方进去做空的话，那我们其实就已经知道了，当平均的股票价格数量超过3亿股的时候，我们就是基本上这个下跌的空单的交易就结束了。
明白吗？It's not the time, weeks or months that's important, it's the number of shares in the free float that have changed.
这个就是时间和那个空间并不是最重要的，而最重要的在这个市场这个股票里面呢，就是自由流通量。
And we calculate that by looking at the trend behavior in history.
我们通过观察它历史的这个价格行为表现。
So here, 303 million, here, 307 million, here, 308 million.
所以它每一次呢都是3.03亿股，然后3.07亿股、3.08亿股的交易换手量。
Now, when we combine that with the other analysis, GMMA, trend line, and countback line, then we can have more confidence that the breakout is genuine or that the mid-trend entry is safe.
我们再把刚刚提到的这个自由流通量结合在这个整个完整的策略里面，我们再来看的话，加上这个固比均线、趋势线和这个 CBL， 那么我们将会获得更高概率的这个胜率，然后呢会对这笔交易更有信心。
Now, we are finding that this extra method of analysis is making trades more reliable.
我们总结经验发现呢，这一个策略呢，会让我们整个交易呢变得更可靠。
This idea has been around for many years.
这个想法或者说是方法呢，已经有效的运营了好几年了。
What is different about the way that we do it? We do it differently.
那我们做出了什么样的改变呢？
Because we take the actual trend move and calculate the number of shares that have changed hands.
我们的改变就是加了一些，就是说确定它是一个真实的趋势。
So this is the inferred free float value.
Sorry, inferred free flow.
We don't know exactly the number for the free float, so this helps us to calculate it.
OK. 因为我们不知道它的这个具体的外面这个流通的是多少，但是我们通过这段时间的这个走势观察它的平均持有量，我们是能够大概猜出来。
In the United States, there are some companies that research the free floats that is available for each stock.
我们也可以通过一些研究啊，或者说资料啊，去找到就是说一个公司的自由流通量。
No one does it in Australia.
之前澳洲还没有人做这些事情。
And also, they don't cover the entire market.
他们当然也不可能照顾到整个市场里。
So this gives us a way to calculate the actual share turnover for each trend segment.
所以呢，这个方法就告诉我们怎样去评估在每一个个体股票里面它的上涨的一个区间块里面的平均持有量或者自由流通量。
Now, of course, this is a perfect example.
这是一个非常好的案例。
And this method does not always work for all stocks.
当然，这个也不是适合所有股票。
But where it has been reliable in the past, we can use it to be reliable into the future.
但如果在这个股票里面，它对过去适用，那它大概率也对未来适用。
So what's important is how you manage your risk.
另外一个重要的事情呢，就是你如何管理你的风险。
And I know I've talked about the 2% rule before, and I'm going to talk about it again because it is perhaps the most important thing that you need to know about the market.
这个2%的风险控制呢，是我之前提过多次的，但是呢，这是最重要的一个环节，所以说我再次给大家讲一下。
It is magic.
它是一个魔法。
We assume that we have $100,000 available for trading.
假设我们有100万的资金可以交易。
If the individual stock we buy, we spend $10,000, then a loss of $2,000 is a 20% loss on the trade, but $2,000 is only 2% of our total trading capital.
如果我们买一个股票只花了1万块钱，但是呢产生了20%的亏损，就亏2000块钱。这虽然在单个股票上面是20%的亏损，但是我们在整个总资产来讲，100万它只是2%。
The most that we can afford to risk is 2% of our total trading capital, which in this case is $2,000.
在整个投资组合里面，我们能承担的单个的这个亏损呢，就是2%。
On a $20,000 position size or trade size, that's a 10% loss on the trade.
但如果是我们持有这个股票或者产品呢2万块钱，那10%的亏损呢就已经达到了2000块。
It's a 5% loss on a trade size of $40,000.
如果我们的交易量是4万块，那我们只能承受5%的损失。
People often say, "Oh, I can't afford to lose 20% on the trade."
人们总是说我不能再亏20%在某一个单独的产品里。
Yes, you can.
在我这里你是可以的。
If that 20% loss on the trade is equal to 2% of your total trading capital, then that's okay.
如果你单个产品的亏损20%仅等于整个投资组合亏损的2%，那么你是可以这么亏的。
So this understanding, this magic in the market, protects our trading capital.
所以这个策略呢，是像魔法一样的去保护大家的本金。
But of course, it's the exit that makes the money for us.
我们就是但是它的好处呢，就是经常会带来10%这样的收益。
And what we are finding in the current market is that we aim for a 10% profit on the trade.
我们在市场里面寻找的就是能获得10%收益的产品。
Once the trade reaches 10% profit, then we tighten the stop loss to protect our profit.
当我们的获利超过10%的时候，我们就要设置止损来保护我们的利润。
Some trades run and run very well.
有一些产品赚钱了，会继续赚更多的钱。
So in these trades, we had 10% profit targets.
在这2个交易中，我们都有10%的收益目标。
But once the trade reached that 10% target, we tightened the stop loss and let the trade continue to run.
当我们的回报超过10%的时候，我们就开始设置止损，让价格继续跑，一直保护我们的止损往更高的水平去奔跑。
So when we aim for a 10% profit, it means that's the minimum profit that we're looking for.
当我们说我们想要达到10%回报的时候，请注意这10%是我们要求的最低回报。
And we protect that profit carefully.
我们会保护这利润非常仔细的保护。
Now, as people will know, we use a countback line or an ATR line to help tighten that profit up.
正如大家知道的，我们会用倒数线法则还有 ATR 2个指标来保护我们的利润。
I'm not going to look at those in detail this evening.
我今晚不会再去更多的解释这些。
There is one exception to the 10% rule that we are using at the moment.
这有一个例外，就是我们说10%的这个准则。
And that is when we use chart pattern trading.
就是当我们用这个图表 K 线的图表的时候。
Now you'll be familiar with common chart patterns.
当然大家都很熟悉了，对这些图表。
Upward sloping triangles, head and shoulders patterns, flag patterns, saucer patterns.
像这个旗形啊、三角形啊，还有什么头肩顶形态啊，这些大家应该都比较熟悉了。
We can see these patterns all the time in the market.
我们会在市场上持续的见到这些图形。
But different market conditions means that some patterns are more successful than others.
但是市场情况不一样的时候呢，不同的图形出现的，它的这个正确率或者有效情况呢是不一样的。
So at the moment we find upsloping and downsloping triangles are very accurate.
我们在这些年的经验上来看的话，趋势线上升或者下降的趋势线和三角形突破是比较有效的。
We find head and shoulder reversal patterns are very accurate.
以及呢，头肩顶反转形态呢是比较有效的。
And we find that bullish flags are performing very well.
Bullish the market up. 就是旗形的突破向上升形态也比较好。
对。We find that cup and saucer patterns are not so reliable in this market condition at this time.
Sorry, cup and what is cup and?
Cup and handle or saucer patterns are not so reliable.
Saucepan.
Cup and handle 杯子。
杯柄形态的那个杯柄形态是不太有效的，在当下的市场环境里。
对。So different market conditions are more compatible with different types of chart patterns.
所以在不同的市场环境里，或者说不同的形态呢，我们还是要结合当下的市场去验证。
The importance of a chart pattern is that it is a high probability trade.
High probability trade.
It means that the trade target will most likely be reached.
就是会帮我们把那个就是预期的价格能够实现，就是通过这些图表，就是有一个验证吧，相当于。
Here's the example.
这里就是案例。
So in a triangle, we measure the base or the vertical edge of the triangle pattern.
我们这个三角形的突破呢，就是我们看这个箭头的左边这个就是它的三角的这个就是支撑的地方。
And we take that value and project it upwards from where it breaks out.
当它突破的时候呢，它上升的这个空间呢，就是三角形它左边的这个柱子的这个空间，就是往上翻一番。
So if that is 30 cents, then this is 30 cents.
如果这是3毛钱的价格呢，再往上再多加3毛钱的价格。
There's a high probability that the price breakout will reach that price projection target.
所以呢，这种形态呢，就会告诉我们一个大的概率事件啊，就是价格会碰到之上面的那个顶部。
And that's where we exit the trade.
这就是我们退出这笔交易的价格。
Because once it's hit that target, we don't know if it is likely to continue or, like this example, it will suddenly collapse.
所以呢，这个就是当价格到了我们这个上方的顶点，就是预测出来的 K 线给出来的这个图形价格的预期之后呢，我们就要离场的原因是因为我们不知道之后的价格怎么走，它有可能上涨，也可能像这个图就下跌了。
But we do know if we enter in this pattern, there's a high probability it will reach its price target.
但是我们比较能够确定的是，当这个三角形态出现的时候，它的能够到达的这个止盈离场的价格呢，就是往上翻一翻，这个概率比较大。
That target might be 8.5% in this trade, or it might be 20%, or sometimes even 50%.
这个获利比例呢，一般都是在像这个是8.5%，有可能最高达15%的回报。
Just before we go to question and answer, let me summarize.
在 Q&A 之前呢，我先总结一下今天晚上讲的内容。
We need to always understand if the dog is going to bark.
我们需要理解和明白，看门狗到底会叫还是不会叫。
We think that the market should react strongly to the Hamas attack. It did not.
当我们有时候会认为市场应该怎么走，应该向上，但往往市场是相反的。
In this case, the dog did not bark.
在这种情况下，狗就是不叫的。
The GMMA told us that the trend was so strong that it was likely to continue.
估比均线就告诉我们这个中长期投资者的确切的方向，趋势会继续延续。
So what's important is that we trade what we see on the chart, not what we believe might happen.
所以我们最核心的就是我们要交易图表上已经出现的东西，而不是我们去交易预判的东西。
Of course, we need to be prepared for what we think might happen, but we also need to be prepared to change our mind depending on how the chart development happens.
我们的大脑会对接下来准备发生的事情呢有一些想法但是呢，我们也要随时根据图表上走出来的线段和图形去更正我们大脑中的想法。
And when we trade, the first thing we do is try to make sure that if we have a loss, it is less than 2% of our total trading capital.
当我们开始交易每一笔交易的时候，我们首先映入脑袋的就是这笔交易损失总资产的2%，就是我们要离场的时候。
And then for us, in the current market condition, we aim for 10% profit.
在当下市场环境里面，我们的目标呢就是获得一个最低10%回报。
And once we reach that, we tighten the stop loss to protect that profit.
如果到达10%，我们会缩小止损的这个价格，然后保护我们获得的利润。
And where it is compatible, we use free float analysis to further confirm that the trade opportunity is good.
当条件允许情况下，我们会用这个流通的这些股票数量，自由流通量来去衡量，印证我们的方向上的判断。
Okay, Alama.
Yeah, all good. Yeah.
Questions? We have some time for questions.
Yeah, just one question. The client asks, where they can find the free float?
Okay, the free float is in our own charting software, GTE. It will be available in Metastock soon. We are just finalizing the Metastock indicator.
就是大家在那个自己的交易软件上，包括现在正在推进的在MT4、MT5上面，未来会看到。现在的话，它应该是在交易所。
Right. We are also working with MT4, MT5 to have this indicator available as well. But I thought I'd just let you know tonight.
Oh, tonight? Yeah.
This is advanced surprise.
Okay. 它就是会去跟进推进 MT5 软件上面能够看到这些交易量还有这些自由流通量的这些信息。
So it will be available soon.
Okay. So one of the client asked the single trade, the 10% target profit aim is for single trade or for the whole capital?
For the single trade. So I'm looking for 10% return on the single trade. Once I get 10% return, then I tighten the stop loss to let the trade continue to rise.
OK, 10%的这个获利目标呢，是对每一笔交易的，而不是对总资金的。所以说每一次交易都会设置这样的目标。Yeah, another client. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so we want to capture as much of this trade rise here as possible.
我们也是希望尽可能多的去获得所有涨幅里面的这些收益。
So once we get the first 10%, then we watch it very carefully. So the method we use is to put our stop just 1 cent below the low of the previous candle.
所以当价格达到了10%的时候，我们还想继续获利的情况下呢，我们就要把止损上移。止损移动的时候呢，要非常的小心，就是尽量比前一个蜡烛线的那个低点还要再低一点点，低1分钱左右。
So on this left-hand side, you can see that our stop is at 79, which is 1 cent below the low at 80 from the previous candle.
所以大家看到我这次的出场价格呢，是在0.7879左右就是这个线横线这里，它比前一天的 K 线图的最低点还要低一点点。
So we want to capture at least 10%, but then more if the trade continues to develop. But many trades are only giving 10% at the moment.
所以每一个笔交易就是尽量获得10%，超过更好。Yeah. The question from Chris Shen. He asked any place or website or like institutional education something learn where can they learn from you or like yeah.
谢谢。This is thank you for this question. We do a weekly newsletter, and in the newsletter we explore these trading techniques. We use current trading opportunities and show the readers how they develop and how we manage them.
这个呢就是顾比先生他们的这个newsletter， 就 newsletter 就是已经有28年了，然后呢里面会告诉大家接下来哪些有利可图的交易以及信号，会给大家预警，就像雷达一样提供信号，告诉大家直接就是会有一个报表出来这是这个。
We call it Toyota report.
它叫做 Toyota 的报告。
Which actually stands for tutorials in applied technical analysis.
就是技术分析指导相当于是这个中文。Any website? Just so the
website is guppytraders.com.
Okay. Thank you.
So all of our information is there.
Yeah. They need to take a photo of a screenshot.
I will leave it there. And of course, many of these techniques are also discussed in our book, Stocks and Forex Trading, and my other books.
Any discount on the Black Friday?
I'm not sure. Possibly because these books are available by Amazon and all the rest of them. I do not sell them. The bookshops sell them.
Okay.
But don't you? If you take out a subscription to the newsletter in the next 1 week, we will give you Black Friday 10% discount.
Okay.
So when you do it, you must mention that you are Go Markets customer.
Okay, thank you. 如果大家去买这个左边的这个信号的话，大家提Go Markets可以获得10%的这个折扣。And so how much for that?
I cannot remember exactly. I don't worry about the price. I worry about writing the newsletter, not about the selling.
Oh, okay. So I just asked the client to find the price.
It is less than the cost of 1 cup of coffee a week.
Oh, it's very cheap. Yeah. 就是一杯咖啡的价格1周，所以说非常便宜，大家可以获得它的信号。So what's the 73%? Is that successful rate or annual rate?
So we run a demonstration portfolio, and for the last 28 years, the newsletter has been published for 28 years. The average return on capital is 73%.
Totally or annually or just average? Annually.
That is money in the bank. That's the profit from trades that are closed.
That's amazing. I need to buy it directly after the evening. 他说
So
yeah, just translate. One minute, I just translate. The most important is the clients know that. 那顾先生说，平均年化回报是73%，在过去28年时间里面，所以非常的厉害啊。Yeah, finish.
So these are 2 example trades from the newsletter.
这2笔交易就是在他的那个报告里面的。
But what we are teaching you is the technique and the method.
现在我给大家教的呢，就是说这些找到这些股票这些技术上的方法。
So when we talked about this trade here, we said that it was called BB, and this one was AA. We didn't give you the stock code or the name.
哦，所以这就是给大家左边叫 AA， 右边是 BB 啊，它没有给具体的这个股票代码。
But when we talk about this type of trade here or here, these are common examples in the current market condition.
但这两个图表为什么要拿出来讲呢？就是它代表着当下市场环境里面非常常见的这种现象。
So our objective is not to give you stock tips, but to teach you how to identify and trade these situations, these opportunities.
所以他们的目标呢，也是希望能够教大家能够明白怎么去寻找这些股票的方法，就授人以渔，而不是授人以渔。
Now, every day, we search the market for opportunities, and of course, we trade some of those opportunities, and we include some of those opportunities in the newsletter. So the newsletter shows what we are doing in the market at the moment.
对于顾比先生他们来讲的话，他们会把这个每天做股票筛选，然后他们自己也有交易嘛，所以说他会把一部分筛选呢，有他们交易的一些股票呢，就放在这个报告里面了，去发给大家。
So we show you the method in real time.
所以他会同时在当下的市场中就马上告诉你怎么去做交易。
And on average, most trades are open for about 3 to 4 weeks.
大部分的交易它会持有3到4周。Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gabi. Yeah, very nice, and yeah, successfully. I want to buy it. It's a subscribe it.
And you know, Singles Day is coming up.
Yeah, thank you very much. Signal. Yeah, I like Signal.
So, yeah, we will give 10%, but you must say that you're a Go Markets customer.
Okay. Yeah, Eric. Yeah. 大家提供卖的。
对不起, we'll give you 11%. It is Singles Day.
Okay, one more, 1% extra. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gabi. Okay, very good to hear you and see you again. So this is the final seminar for this year. This is the last one. Okay, thank you. I will let the clients know that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Just any word to say to the clients? I think almost 50 clients now.
Trading is not about predicting what will happen in the market.
Sorry, 交易不是预测市场。
Trading success is about managing your trades as the market develops.
交易是随着市场的发展，你要去管理你的交易。
The most important thing you can remember is this.
最重要的你需要记住就是这一点了。
坚强不是伤。
坚强不是伤。
对。
Thank you very much, Gabi.
Okay. 回头见。
Yeah, okay. See you next year.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. 再见了。
Yeah. 再次感谢顾比先生啊。那么我们今天内容就到这里了，还有20多位朋友还没有下线啊，感谢大家，没有什么其他内容了啊。如果是想要获得更多资讯的话，大家可以去加我们右下角这个小助手啊，有悉尼的有墨尔本的。另外呢，这个我们的官网呢是 gomarketssyd.com， 然后呢这个是-AU 呢就是澳洲的咱们华人的，然后呢-CN 呢就是这个就是中文版界面。不要进错网站了，因为现在这个市面上有很多这个金融诈骗，它是网站不一样啊，就 gomarkets.com， 然后呢，如果是大家不清楚啊这个网站进的对不对，就是联系我们的这个微信小助手。当然微信小助手你也可能加错了啊，所以说还是要注意一下。我们的这个所有的钱呢都是放在这个澳洲隔离的，所有的账户呢都是 client trust 的账户啊。如果大家需要确认的话，跟我们小助手要，我们这里都有这个记录啊，就告诉大家钱放在 gomarkets 呢是托管的，我们是公司是动不了大家资金的啊，所以这个是官网。有任何的问题呢，有想要联系的有电话有这个微信也有这些邮箱然后呢底下就是我们的说明。好了，再次感谢大家，祝大家晚安。